Hey, church, welcome back to More Than That. I have sitting next to me Pastor Raphael and Tyler, and this week was a lot of names.
Yeah.
There were so many names, and I'm really glad that I am not the one that had to read it. We had Trevor do that.
Yeah.
This is probably the best sermon that I've heard on the names. It is probably the only sermon that I've heard on this section. So I think that it's good to work through these type of things, to see how they connect and see what really is significant and why the author of Genesis included the names. Because, in modern parlance, there's not a whole lot of reason to include something like this.
Yeah.
But there is a reason, which we're going to get into a little bit, and you touched on in the sermon. So if you had an extra 10 minutes or so to really drive something home or introduce something new, what would you have said?
Yeah. So when it comes to some of the things that at least trying to this is probably like one of the hardest texts to walk through, mainly because of all the questions that are in the text, and so as much as I did some work through them, I didn't feel like I kind of exhausted some of that stuff.
Okay.
So like in terms of like when you're asking like just theologically, like there are just so many controversies that have come just from that chapter, from chapter 5 and then chapter 6. And so some of the stuff we'll end up covering in this coming week. But then some of the things I wanted to touch on were probably just like given the first one being you see, the difference there. Like when you look at chapter 5, some people have looked at God created man in his image, and then the next thing, what does it say about Adam creating Seth?
In his likeness according to his image, which is a repeat of Genesis 1.
Yeah, it's a repeat of Genesis 1, but now it's actually as if Adam is having Seth in his own image. And so some people would love to like probably divide there and actually say, therefore, like only Adam was made in God's image, like in its fullness, which is true. Like, and then, but obviously, like Seth is born into sin. In sin, my mother conceived me. This is Psalm 51, and that's actually like where, and there's two ways you can go there. The unhealthy side is actually like both of them are unhealthy. Those two ways is like, number one, man is totally depraved and therefore is not made in the image of God. You see what I mean? Like the whole the image of God erased. And so people will use that kind of text to say that like the image of God is totally shut out.
Yes.
Like, and which is not true, because if you see the continuity there, there is a continuity there that's like Adam is in God's likeness, and so therefore God's likeness is shared with Seth as well, because Adam is in God's image. So there's that aspect of that. And then obviously another kind of like way of looking at that is actually like where so it's either like, oh, the image of God is totally defaced, or like maybe on the other side of actually just saying that like, hey, Adam is the only one who sinned. Seth is now made in the image of God, and so therefore the whole idea there, therefore Adam sinned, there's a clean cut in between. We now are all starting at a fresh new slate. We stand on a clean slate, and then we deny the original sin, basically, because they look at that gap there. They deny it and they say that like, that was Adam, this is us, as you can see in between Seth there. So therefore, man is born neutral, and then it's on your first sin that you basically now are described as sinner. But that's not what the text helps us with as well. As you kind of keep on going, you get to see that actually, like God then, God looks and he says that man is continually evil and always, even in his imagination. And that text is going to actually be helpful. So it just basically kind of teaches us on how to read the text and read the context and see what's happening. So that's the first issue. The second issue is going to be obviously like, I don't know if you're looking at like, for example, some other texts that are around the same time, they just have even like outrageous ages, the ages of people. And here you get to see that they're like where obviously 900 years, like all these other years, like 600 and something, all these years are giving you a picture of like, oh, so that's what it was like to populate the earth. And I think that's actually why even the text is actually showing us there are the sons and daughters,
Yeah.
But there is still a big line there where genealogies are really servants of actually just keeping the continuity of the covenant, and also showing you that God and his promise, this is how like the people of God are actually expectant of God's promise, but then this is how God worked his promise through the genealogies. There's no disconnection from Genesis chapter 3 when God promises the seed to Genesis chapter 5, and then when we get to Noah, and then when we get to Abraham, and that's why even when you get to the beginning of Luke and the beginning of Matthew, they give us genealogies. Luke is gonna take us in his genealogy back all the way to Adam, but then like Matthew is going to take us back all the way to at least the patriarchs, right? There's just like, they are just showing some really good continuity there of actually showing you, hey, this is the same God. The Bible is one unified story that's actually moving forward. So genealogies ultimately are showing us continuity of God's covenant, and ultimately all of the genealogies are really longing and pointing us towards Christ. That's actually like what I wanted to kind of make that clear. And I think as well as this is like where your favorite topic comes in, resurrection. We could spend so much time looking and saying, and he went to be with God, took him, and he went to God. That gap there, obviously, like we have to now wrestle with Enoch and his life. I think the text obviously wants us to actually see that, like, hey, God's covenant people who they were still just like at least these people who were characterized by faith, that at least like, and this is, from verse 1 all the way to, I think it's verse 26, that's where Enoch is at, right?
Yep.
It's showing you, hey, if you're wondering what their lives look like, they were characterized with walking with God. And really what mattered in between that dash is walking with God. And I really kind of just like, if I could boil it down, when I was kind of walking through that, that's where I kind of felt like probably most of my sermon should have probably spent more time on.
Okay.
Like, and just why? Because that's a very kind of like important saying. Enoch walked with God, and later on we're gonna see it with Noah in chapter 6-9, and you're gonna see it also with Abraham, where God says, walk before me in Genesis 17. And it really just then, when you get to Psalm 1, you get to see this righteous man is the one who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, like of the sinners and scoffers, but his delight is in the law of the Lord. And then at the end of the day, when you now get to the New Testament, it's going to be saying prioritize your walk with the Lord. Philippians is going to kind of point towards that. In fact, every single text like that you find specifically when it comes to like the epistles and most of them, starting first of all with the teachings of Christ, they're going to be describing like there is theological teachings, and the implications of that is what does that look like on the ground, the Beatitudes, and all that stuff. And then when you get to the epistles, like for example, Ephesians 1-3 is divided into is old doctrine, and then from chapter 4, what's the repeated word there? Walking before God. Like this is what walking worthy of the gospel. And you see that in Philippians. You see that in Romans. Romans 1 all the way to 12 is going to be literally just a theological like a theological exercise. But from chapter 12, it's all the practicals. You see that in 1 John. You see that like every one of them are concerned about, then what does this look like in real life? How then do you live a life side by side with God? And so that's very important, as I think that's what this is really going to be, the crux of the text. And everything from there becomes actually like tested with that as a litmus test. God's people either walk with him, or if they stray and walk with idols, like whatever you end up walking with is where you're going to find worth in. Like Psalm 115 is going to say that like those who make them become like them, they become worthless like their idols. So it's who you work with forms you to become either like a doxological creature, a creature of worship, or a depraved creature, a creature that actually like you're making, you're worshiping the things that are on earth. And that's Romans 1, exchanging the creator for the created. And then it says that like then they become debased in their minds and their hearts and all that stuff. So there's that part. Another side that was really hard to kind of walk through was actually the argument of who are the sons of God, right?
I'm glad you brought that up.
Who are the sons of God? And once again, context has to help us there. The argument obviously is that like every time sons of God has kind of showed up, it usually is speaking of angels. It's speaking of, speaking of angels. And so, but yet at the same time, if you go to Matthew chapter 22, I think Matthew chapter 22, when they talk to Jesus and they kind of like push him in terms of marriage, what ends up happening there is that like they talk to Jesus about marriage, and Jesus does push back, and he says basically like that, hey, listen, in heaven, there's not going to be any, like basically angels do not marry. That's really at least just like what Jesus kind of says. And that is something at least kind of made to consider when you're bringing that as an argument there. And then so therefore, another kind of usually like way sons of God is used sometimes in the Bible is actually describing rulers, powerful people who specifically even kings, right? Kings. And that's actually like when you see it on the other side, it is actually like why basically like every other, like Pharaoh and all his gods, like he was the son of God, basically. Whether it's actually like with the Greek mythologies, usually it's almost like they've got like divinity pulsing through their veins. But at the same time, God will refer to Israel as his son, his people as his sons. And so it's also just like that part where I think that's attached to even just the Nephilim there. Like, Nephilim at the end of the day were very powerful individuals. And so therefore, like, it's like they're giants. But yet that's actually like where we have to wrestle with that, is like, okay, are these the sons of God? Are they? People will connect that, and then they'll say, okay, so the women slept with the angels and therefore gave birth to actually what? Giants in the land. Is that what happened? Scripture is very ambiguous about that. It's a theory that's there, but it's not really founded as much.
It's just modern day Bigfoot, that's all.
Yeah. It's so using the context that we have, if you heard me, I've kind of ended up settling on actually just saying, where do we see, like, what is this passage giving us? It's giving us this line of people of faith, and a line of people, Cain's line of people that are characterized by rebellion. And I think sons of God there is actually like, if we're going to look and say sons of God in the New Testament is describing Christians, right? Sons of God, like Christians, he gave us the right to become children of God, right? Then maybe as well in here, there's almost a way in which is also a theory, but using the context, there's a way in which he's pointing back to the very people that had been looked at as actually the righteous line. And now, but they're also being there's a way in which, yes, they're righteous and they're following God, but man, the flesh gets the best of them. Because why? Because of actually how they're described in verse 1 and 2. Like in verse 2, the sons of God saw that the daughters of the mankind were beautiful, and they took any of those wives as for themselves. And so there, lots of people will actually just say that, like, this is now like where it sets line intermarrying with ungodly, but then it's actually very based mainly on just physical beauty. And that's also as well like a repetition of actually like the very sin of Eve there, where she saw, she took, right? Like she
saw that it was good for food, not that it was good for her.
Yeah. So, and desired, and then it took. So there is actually like some commentators would say that like, hey, this is actually like also a mirror of another fall. That's really at the end of the day,
a second fall,
a micro fall. We thought this generation of like these guys, that's where the seed was gonna come from. Wait, it gets worse. Even they screw up. That's really what at the end of the day kind of maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Like it's like there's like a hope, and then there's a down. That's really there.
Yeah.
And in fact, some people will actually even just say that like, and after that you see that like obviously my spirit will not remain. People are corrupt, and then obviously like, and then it even just brings up again when sons of God came and daughters of mankind, they both, these are just like, these are there, but it's actually like where there's a misuse of power. Some people would say that they took wives as they pleased. There's actually like an excessive polygamy that's actually happening there. And just basically like just really, and pride is increasing as well during that, like, they were powerful men of old and famous men, but don't read that and disconnect it from verse 5. In the midst of all that, what does God see? And that's actually like where finally there is what does God see? He sees wickedness increasing, widespread on earth, every inclination. So I want you to kind of see it's a layered cake of a mess. Like, it's a layered cake of a mess. I don't know if you have read. I just like read with my daughter a set of novels, and by Andrew Peterson.
No. I've not read anything from him.
Yeah. So, and in there, they're like Wing Feather Saga.
Okay.
And in there are these creatures that have taken people captive. And every day, if you're baking them a good meal, you have to literally spit in it like it's mucus. It's just basically like kind of take meat, put it outside, let it actually have worms. And just like everything is just basically just kind of
disgusting.
Like, it's a picture of the fall in the saga, because it's a really just kind of like what has gone wrong, and they are longing for heaven. And really, that's what you see here. So widespread on top, every inclination of the human mind, was nothing but evil all the time. And then really basically just like you're thinking, even the intentions. This is the part where you get to hear over and over when they say the heart is deceitful. Who can even fathom it? Jeremiah 17. And you're getting to see then God finally then comes to judge. And there, one probably just like the one that like is very, very like another controversial issue. What does the text say? And God was deeply grieved, number one. And then God what? And he says that God regretted that he had made man, and he was deeply grieved, right? And he says, I regret that I made them. That's now like, we can talk about it this week, or we can talk about it next week, because I'm going to start in verse 5 again. But really, at the end of the day, people then, this is where open theism has come from. This is like where like an idea, like some theologians have come in and they've said that like
God didn't know that this was going to happen, so therefore God doesn't know the future.
Yeah. And then so therefore, so you see why I was saying there's so much going on.
There's a lot. Yes, there's a lot going on.
Man, yeah.
So I'm glad that you brought up regretted and deeply grieved. I don't necessarily jump to open theism there. I jump to impassibility.
Yeah.
Because
and also that, yeah.
Because like there's, I think. So,
what is impassibility?
So impassibility is basically that God doesn't have any passions. So that there are no or in layman's terms, God doesn't have emotions. So I tend to disagree with that based upon what we read in Scripture. Just like looking at it, it's like grief, regret kind of seems like it's an emotion or an emotional response to what's going on outside of God. So also then we have the incarnation, which is, Jesus went through all of these emotions. We see when Lazarus died, we see that Jesus, like his first response was not, I'm God.
That's good.
He tore his robes, screamed, and wept because one of his close friends died. And so it's like, if Jesus is God incarnate, he's truly man and truly God, then and Jesus had emotions. I would say that it's possible then that impassibility might have gotten a little wrong. That God might have had and maybe does have emotions. We see that. We kind of see it. And some theologians are like, oh, no, that's just anthropomorphism, which is a big old fancy term for ways that the human mind can understand God. I'm cool with either of them. But it's just one of those things where we should really wrestle with that, because if God really wants to be our friend, then the emotional life of God is going to, or the lack of emotional life within God is going to clash with ours. So what does that look like? And especially if we are made in the image of God, what does that? That's good. How do we reconcile all of that together? We're not going to solve it right now.
This is actually like something that's been going What we're
This has been
talking
going on
about
for
now,
years.
this is theology. Like when you hear theology, this is the exercise of theology and wrestling with it.
Yeah.
And obviously considering what's on the outside. I would look at it as anthropomorphic, number one. Like in the fact that like, I don't think words are going to probably be enough to actually paint a picture of what God looked at and saw there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like and basically just
well,
like
it's kind of like the old adage. Adage.
yeah, adage. yeah.
Picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
So when God looks at it, there's to stick with the adage, there's 1,000 words that we could use to describe that.
Mm-hmm. And then so therefore it brings it to at least like, hey, picture this. What kind of picture would you see? It would be a picture of someone grieving.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the opposite of this would be looking at seeing when God literally like on the other side in Genesis 1 over and over, and he saw that it was good. This is now literally, I think, if you miss this point, and I said it on Sunday, you miss this point, then you will not read the judgment piece well. Because like everything is out of whack. In fact, another theologian says, at this moment, if this was a diagnosis and God was looking at it as a doctor, he would look and he will give, in fact, later on, like right there, he is giving a diagnosis of stage 4 cancer that is aggressive, that literally like is, you have just a couple of weeks to live.
Yeah.
Or you have a couple of days to leave. You need to like, you need care right away.
Yeah, and that you're going to get the most aggressive form of chemo and radiation that I can give you. That will not kill everything.
That will not. Yeah, this is basically you're saying that. So there's that aspect.
Oh yeah.
But then there's actually like, I don't know if I think the is God learning. Which is now the open theism, is God just learning that like, oh, it is bad? No, I don't think that's it. I think he has to actually like really also help people understand, like, because once again, if he just like is that, you look at him as a tyrant if he didn't give us this verse. You look at him as a tyrant of like, oh, and he responded with a backhand. And he just destroyed everything. Or you can see he slows down and he looks and he is grieved and he is moved deeply, which is actually like a very good place for us to be able to say, no, he's not learning. He is showing you what it meant when he actually told man from the beginning, on the day you eat that fruit, you shall surely die. But that death is not going to be, man, like, because there's a day you receive a sentence of death, but there is a process of death.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The sentence of death is a different kind of deal, but the process of death, of watching over and over and over. And therefore, even now explaining why then, like, the lifespan cap. Of actually just like, how much more would you rather watch a movie of someone literally just running into misery? Like, and there's just a way in which, like, for God as well, he's like, I'm going to cap it at 120. Why? Because, man, I made them in my image. So there is a way in which, as a parent, you can't just like, you can't separate. Like, you're watching your image, no matter how depraved they are, there's still just a way in which, like, he's going to have some way of actually, like, oh, man, come on, bro. Like, and then there's the other side of that.
Well,
like,
that's where, like, there's I forget what it's called. Is it soft parenting? Is
that's soft parenting.
Is that the actual term for it?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
I don't know what it's called, but it's where basically you just kind of let your kid do whatever, and they reap their own consequences. But if you're looking at it from a biblical standpoint, the ultimate parent, which is God, the Father, comes in here and says, he steps in. There's been a whole lot of screw ups, and he's given them time to, repent, turn back, get it all straight, and then they continue down through. And then he's like, I have to step in before things get even worse than they are. Yeah. And that's exactly what a parent does. Yeah. I mean, thinking about I have a 2.5-year-old right now. Yeah. There are a lot of things where I just let her do her thing. And if she ends up, falling down, like last night we went for a walk and she was running ahead. I didn't want her to do that, but I let her do it, and she ended up scraping her leg, scraping her knee, and it's like
still within freedom within the boundaries.
Yeah, so stepping in there is, hey, no, you have to stay with me now because I don't want you to get hurt anymore. I let you do it, and now you have to reap the consequences. And the consequences are you are reined in.
That's good.
Didn't put the leash on her that time, but which I'm not afraid to do. Which we've done at amusement parks and works out really great.
And so some of that stuff now, the compassion of God. I think when we get to Exodus chapter 34, remember once again, who are the first readers of Genesis? When are they? Who are the first hearers, rather? Who are the first hearers of Genesis? And what kind of revelation do they have of God? Like that literally just like is going to be very helpful. One of them is going to be, they're reading this text here alongside hearing Exodus chapter 34, the Lord, gracious, compassionate, slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love, forgiving iniquity, but will not by any means let go of, he will still just be able to revisit and punish wickedness. And there's a way in which it's like, don't separate those, because the very people that are hearing this story and being reminded who they are and whose they are also as well on the journey where they're discovering who God is. And in there, God is also still just a God who's compassionate. And I think the compassion of God here, we see it also in Christ, exactly like where at least every single time you saw brokenness, he is seeing that. And there's a way in which Tim Keller kind of says that, there's a way in which, like when he's looking at Jesus and he's kneeling down there and he's weeping, he has two responses to the funeral of his friend. The first response is to Martha. He gives Martha the truth. I am the resurrection and the life. But he gives what? Mary. He knows exactly what he's going to do. But he gives Mary the other side, which is now like, no, and Jesus wept. And they looked, and what did they say? See how much he loved him. And then he weeps, and obviously he calls Lazarus to come. But he is weeping not only just because of that. He's also weeping because he is seeing, and if he is Jesus, we are reading in John 11 and 12, who is Jesus, who was there at creation. There's nothing that was made that was not made apart from him, who was in the beginning with God. He is also the God who made the world, and who is seeing, basically like, who saw it as actually good, but now he is seeing, literally, he's at the graveside. He is seeing what actually sin has done to his creation, and all of creation he's looking at through the prism of a grave side. And no wonder why from John chapter 12 he says, if I be lifted up, I will draw all men to myself. And from there it says he focused to go to the cross as a God who is both truthful. I think that's where impossibility kind of wrestles with. A God who holds on to truth, but yet a God who still weeps with us.
Yes.
And there is that picture where I think Jesus comes in kind of like, and we see him clearly in here. Yeah. So that's my, 30 minutes later.
So I think that, because I don't want to harp too much on impassibility and open theism and things like that, but there open theism is becoming more and more popular. So I
Yeah.
think it's something that we should deal with. And I think that like the learning that Jesus goes through and that like passages like this, God regretted and was grieved, end up not necessarily that he's learning anything new, but he's experiencing something new. So from like with Jesus, for instance, it's not necessarily that there's new information that comes in and God had no idea that it was what it was.
Yeah.
So I like the way that William Lane Craig puts omniscience is that God knows and believes all truths. So if it's true that that Lazarus died, God knows and believes that.
Yeah.
Jesus knows and believes that. But as he's walking up, there's this it kind of experiential learning that's going on. There's no new propositional truth that's actually coming into God's knowledge.
Yeah.
But there's an experiential knowledge that comes in that wouldn't have happened. And I think that's where they end up getting. They just take it too far. The open theists take it too far, where they it's like all knowledge is then going to be propositional knowledge, which is so propositional knowledge is the statements or the knowledge that is represented by sentences. So Jesus wept, for instance, is it's describing an experience, but it has a proposition behind it that the words in that sentence are representing. That's I think they end up taking everything as propositional knowledge, where there's other types of knowledge that are out there that we have. And I think that's where they end up taking it too far, where they don't see them as different types of knowledge. They see it all as one big whole package.
You're lumping it.
That you can't have. You kind of have to throw out the baby with the bathwater, not just the bathwater. So
that's actually now like where it's like, is it truth? Is it tears? Because like sometimes if we're all truth, and we can do that.
If all truth but no love, then you got
that's
nothing.
like all truth and no tears, all tears and no truth. We need that. And in fact, scripture is going to say Jesus is full of grace and truth. So all truth and no tears has a way of actually coming when someone is hurting and going through a really tough time, and maybe just kind of like it short circuits like sitting and grieving with someone. And then basically just like, so for example, someone has lost a child or lost a husband or spouse, and then I just come in and I'll say that like, well, the Lord says all things work together for the good for those who love him. And is that true? Yes, it's true. But is that the right truth? Is that right? Like, it's just one of those things where it's like,
is it the right time for that?
Is it the
truth?
right time for that? So there's times for truth. And so there's a way in which Jesus deals with the sisters there and gives them a full picture of everything. That's like, while truth is still there, like, and Martha is wrestling with the truth. In fact, Jesus actually has a very interesting way there. Both of the sisters ask the same question. No, they say the same thing. Jesus, if only you had been here, my brother would have not died. They both say the same thing. But both of them, Jesus is able to discern behind, which is what makes him the high priest who sympathizes with all our weaknesses. Behind Martha is wanting to get some truth. So he gives Martha the truth. I am the resurrection and the life. I know that resurrection is going to happen, but Jesus is like, Martha, Martha, Martha. We're having a theological discussion because you had a theological question, but I'm saying that the time is now. It's actually happening right now, and Martha actually like probably needed that. But Mary on the other side was saying, Jesus, if only you were here, my brother wouldn't have died. What really she's looking for, what's going to soothe her there, is wanting the tears part, the grace part of like literally just like, I am torn. Because she's weeping too. And Jesus stops, and we get the best, shortest verse, 11:32, I think. Jesus wept, and then when he weeps there's a way in which it's actually like Mary says, "You see me, you know me." And then there's a way in which it's like, but Martha still sees that. She's holding truth.
And she's saying the exact same thing. You see me, you know me.
You see me, you know me theologically. You see me, you know me emotionally. And both of them end up getting what? Lazzy walks out of the grave. And they unwrap him before they know it. That night ends up with them turning up. Which is good.
Which then kind of gets us back into the things that we say is not necessarily and you're going to... The plain reading of the text doesn't always mean exactly what the plain reading means.
Yeah.
So
that's why we need to do exegesis.
Exactly. Exactly. There's a lot more to reading the Bible and understanding the Bible than just reading the words on the page.
Yeah.
So if you're going to read the plain text that is the question or the statement that Mary and Martha said, exact same statement, it's the intention behind it, what's actually driving it, driving him to ask the question is going to dictate how we answer the question. So there's a lot of discernment that goes in with that. Like you have to know the person on what's going on. And granted, he had this wonderful quality about him that was God. That he was able to be like, I know you. I know what's going on in your heart. So this is why you're asking it. And he answers it correctly and appropriately. But when we are the ones that are kind of faced in that, and obviously we are not God, even though we're made in his image, we can still understand those aspects about people. But a lot of that is going to bring itself out in relationship. So there's been times in our relationship where I know that something's going on behind the scenes because I know you, we've talked about some things, and then you say something, I'm like, dude, are you okay? What else is driving this? And then you've done the same thing with me, where we have that ability because we know each other well enough to be able to do that. So that's, I think, here with God saying that he regretted and was grieved, he was saying that, I think, because he knew the people. It wasn't because he was experiencing maybe he was experiencing something new, that grief, but also it's not that he didn't know that that's what they were like. He knows what they were good. But he's now he's relating to us in that way where he's like, why? Why are you doing this? And then you're forcing my hand. You're forcing me to be that parent that I don't want to be, but I have to be.
And there is a way in which we can image this. I don't know. As soon as Aaron scraped her knee, usually there's if there's two parents in the picture, one of them is I usually am usually I'm the one who's you're fine, get up, you're okay. And then but at least one other parent in there is are you okay? Are you there's just usually oh, I mean, it might be both of you are you're fine, get up, you're good, tough it up. That's
rub some dirt in it, keep going.
But there is usually a really good balance. And I think that's why God made them male and female, because there's that complementary aspect there. Of actually one usually will fly high, the other one will fly low. And there's a way in which the full image of God is embodied there. And I want you to think about this, and we're going to be jumping into John here very soon. When we jump into John, his main thing, remember all these miracles, he chooses 7 different types of miracles, and all of them are written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. I think life there is actually like what's important. Is actually like the true understanding of life is when at least you can hold these things in tension as well, of like there's grace, there's truth, there's all these things that are there. There's law and there's grace and there's these things that like we have to wrestle and do theology, and theology is a study of God, and as we study, there are things that are close-handed, which is why we have the creeds, but there's some things that are actually like that you just have to keep wrestling with. And that's where we are. So
and I like how you kind of plugged that we're going into John in a little bit. I don't exactly know when yet, because that's not last I looked, it wasn't on the calendar. But
it's starting to get in there, because I'm actually I'll tell you this has been the cool part. I get the privilege of going, and if Sundays is a wedding ceremony, I get the privilege of going and tasting all the food that's gonna be getting served in weeks to come. So for me, like if you look at the calendar, you'll see I'm starting to populate one chapter, one sermon at a time, because like I've been kind of working through John the past couple of months, and now like I'm even just walking through it devotionally. But before we do that, we probably might have even like, let's say, a month of our mission, vision, and values before we jump in there. But like I want to encourage you, maybe just like get in a Bible reading plan and just start reading the book of John, and then just read it. And not only that, I'm gonna probably recommend a commentary that I'm kind of like just, I read through a whole bunch of them, like wrestling through stuff. But I'm the guy who basically just like, Sunday morning is probably tough for me, because because I'm stuffed. Like I am literally like, and it is actually
you overserved yourself on the samples at Sam's Club.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I overserved myself with samples. That is amazing. I like that.
I'm going to Sam's Club later, so like as I'm looking, I'm like, oh, I could overserve myself at Sam's Club
and then after
today.
That, you go and you serve,
and then you're like, oh man, I was gonna eat at the cafeteria like afterwards, and you just sit down and you're just like.
Yeah,
like you just like I need if I'm gonna eat, I need to undo a button or two.
Circling with what do you guys call it? I just went British. I was gonna circling with the trolley.
The
you guys
shopping
don't
cart.
call it shopping cart. Yeah, it's not a trolley. Yeah. So it was just my brain just like went trolley, and I was just like, what are we doing? So I get to do that.
Yeah.
Like and that's actually probably where I know sometimes when people are like, the sermons usually, like I'm always looking at that and I'm like, Lord, this is probably like the unfairest part of like preaching is the idea. Here's probably the hard part about preaching. How long do I spend with the text, and what have I read? I will read and read. Like, for example, this one, like research and do all those things and keep going until I've resolved some of the tensions that are there. Because I want to be able to answer those questions. And in fact, on Sunday, I had lots of people walk up to me and say, what about this? What about that? Some of the things we've discussed here.
Yeah.
It was good. We had to interact and talk about that.
But that's what, like, as someone who very much enjoys teaching, a teacher at heart, that's what we want.
Yeah, that's what
we want. It's like we're going to give you the stuff that you need, but there's some things that you don't need that are kind of like side dishes that just like, I'm gonna whet your appetite. You can have a spoonful.
Yeah. So you can.
And then because I want you to come back for more.
Yeah. So the goal there is, so I show up, and usually I'm having the angst and the Like, this is what my preaching professor said. Rafi, know your stuff, know who you're stuffing, and stuff them, right? Know your stuff, know who you're stuffing, and then that will at least help you to separate and take some things and put them aside.
Oh, yes.
And then, but then you need to stuff them. But know that, but don't overstuff them. You know what I mean? Like, because at the end of the day, but I'm coming in there as an overstuffed person who's already like overflowing with that. And but the hardest part is actually like, and what? I have 40 minutes to do this. So it's a miracle when I end up with 46, 47 minutes. Because I usually walk away and I'm still like, I still have so much more. Like,
And that's exactly why we're sitting here.
Yeah, that's why we're sitting here. We kind of had this space. But also some of it as well, like this is also just maybe a way I can pastor you towards listening to sermons. Like in the book of Acts, there's a group called the Bereans.
Yes.
Who actually like heard sermons. And when they heard, they went home and they did a little bit more study. So Sunday sermon is meant to do exactly that, whet your appetite to some things. And I hope you actually have some things that actually like you write notes that at least are like, I need to look further into this. And then when you look further into this, then you ask some questions if you hit the wall. In fact, I was blessed by one of our older saints in our church. And I love at least his curiosity to learn. Like, so Frank Seawright walked up to me on Sunday and he showed me his notes and he was like, yeah, I was wondering how you were going to get through that. And I was like, whew, yeah. And he's like, I'm so proud of how you got through that. Pastors need encouraged, know that. But then really it was so good when he said that. But then he's also said, you see this R that I have circled on the side. It's actually, as I'm taking notes, I put an R and then put a star next to it because I need to do more research on that. Like, and I was like, such a Berean thing to do.
Yeah.
And so I want to just encourage you. That actually is probably like, while actually the pastor is trying and working to give you expository sermons, make sure you become an expository listener.
Yes. Well, that's why. So that's why I'm not afraid to just pop things in here. With this conversation, like I brought up impassibility and propositional knowledge and experiential knowledge and all of like a couple other things. Where it's like I'm doing it not necessarily. Like you know what I'm talking about. But I'm doing like the reason I do it is more pastoral, where it's like I want you to go and check it out, be a good Berean. Ask yourself, and this is like any claim that you make from the pulpit, any claim that I make in the classroom is going to. I want you, the listener, to test me on it. Not just test me like philosophically, is it logically coherent, all that stuff, but does the Bible actually corroborate what I'm saying, or does it go against what I'm saying? And if it goes against what I'm saying, please let me know. And then show me, because that means if you can show me those receipts, show me how biblically I'm wrong or logically that I'm wrong. It's like, I know that you've done your research, and that's when I can say, well done, good and faithful student. So it's
that's where growth is at. Like, so that we're not just vegetating and just receiving stuff, but so that like that's now like where loving God with all our heart and with all our mind, with all our strength and with all our soul, like comes in. Like especially loving God with our minds, of which I'm glad to say we're working on our CCI. Tyler's going to be teaching on loving God with the mind. Like, what is the title of the class?
That.
That.
No, sorry. Sorry, that's the title of the book. The title of the class is Thinking Like Jesus.
Thinking like Jesus. So really just like he wants us to love him in that way. So it's very important to listen and fully engage practice active listening, like write things down, write questions. And then at the same time, Open Church Center, there's a place where you can throw that question so we can answer it here.
Yeah.
And then we can do that. But otherwise, I think I get to really enjoy that, but at the same time, enjoy preaching and studying and all that. But at the same time, a lot of times it's just really strenuous work.
It is.
Which is good. And I'm always glad when people connect with the truth, the truth of God, and then we see life change coming out of that. So
So thank you for the sermon. Thank you for the conversation. We went places that I didn't expect to go, like Sam's Club. But this conversation is not meant to be a replacement for the sermon. If you're listening to the audio version of this, just reverse yourself one podcast earlier, and you're going to get the sermon. So please go check the sermon out if you haven't. If you've already made it this far without checking out the sermon, a lot of it might make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
You might have some more questions, and if that's what happens, good. You now have the excuse to be a good Berean. So thank you for the conversation, and thank you for walking us through some of the passages that no one really wants to, because they're numbers and they're names and seemingly insignificant, but you did a great job, and a couple other people have taken some of these to bring Mr. Carey back into it, all the Toledotes. So this is another Toledote. So walking through the Toledotes, and they don't seem significant, but they are. So thank you for highlighting the significance of the line of Adam this past Sunday.
Oh, you're welcome.
So with that, we'll see you all next week.
See you next week. God bless.